Hey ChatGPT, if you were the devil, how would you destroy men in the 21st century?
If I were the devil and I wanted to destroy men in the 21st century, I'd start by removing their sense of purpose. I'd make them comfortable with mediocrity. I'd drown them in distractions, video games, endless scrolling, mindless entertainment, until years slip by and they wonder why they never built anything meaningful. I'd distort masculinity itself. I'd make strength seem toxic, leadership oppressive, and responsibility a burden. I'd make men ashamed of being men, stripping them of their natural role as protectors and providers, leaving them directionless, weak, and dependent. I'd promote pleasure over progress. I'd make them chase dopamine hits instead of real fulfillment, porn instead of real relationships, junk food instead of health, short-term gains instead of long-term success. I'd make vice feel like freedom and discipline feel like imprisonment. I'd sever them from faith. I'd make them believe that religion is outdated, that submission to God is weakness, and that morality is subjective. I'd fill their minds with nihilism and hedonism until they believe life has no real meaning beyond chasing their next high. I'd keep them alone, weak, and vulnerable, because a man with no tribe, no purpose, and no faith is the easiest to control.
Comment font les Français pour accepter de se faire entuber à ce point? Tous les services publics dysfonctionnent, les hôpitaux débordent, des gens meurent aux urgences sur des couloirs, les prisons sont surchargées depuis des années, la justice est laxiste. On vole l'argent des Français pour l'envoyer en Ukraine et pour l'aide au développement de je ne sais quel autre pays. La France est en train de mourir. Les gens vivent dans leur train-train quotidien, comme si de rien n'était. L'autre jour, j'ai promené mon chien, ça m'a fait pleurer. J'ai vu des gens adorables, des personnes âgées qui ont dû travailler toute leur vie pour ça, pour la France, pour eux. Maintenant, ils ont ça. Ils peuvent même plus se garer dans la rue puisqu'ils retrouvent leur voiture comme ça. Ça me touche trop, c'est horrible. Il faut vraiment que le peuple se révolte. On peut pas se laisser faire par toutes ces élites qui s'enrichissent sur notre dos pendant qu'on galère comme des chiens.
Madame von der Leyen, on ne vous soutiendra jamais. Jamais parce que dans votre Europe, travailler ne suffit plus pour vivre. Plus d'un tiers des actifs européens aujourd'hui disent que leurs revenus ne suffisent plus pour payer les factures. Plus d'un tiers des Européens a dû renoncer à des soins de santé, près d'un tiers renonçait même à des repas, et plus de 2 parents sur 3 aujourd'hui renoncent aux sorties en famille. Et dans ce contexte, vous prenez l'austérité pour les travailleurs, vous qui gagnez 30 000 euros par mois. C'est facile évidemment, mais quelle honte! Et parlons du niveau international où personne n'a oublié votre voyage à Tel Aviv pour aller encourager le criminel de guerre Netanyahou. Je me demande si un jour ce soutien vous vaudra aussi un billet pour La Haye. Madame von der Leyen, pour sauver votre place, vous avez pacté avec l'extrême droite, vous avez racheté les écologistes, humilié les socialistes, mais nous on ne cédera rien, on sera l'opposition sociale pendant les 5 ans à venir, comptez sur nous pour vous opposer. Madame von der Leyen, ah non, elle est partie.
Thank you, President. Dear colleagues, dear President, Commission.
Non, vraiment. On demande à la présidente de la Commission d'être là 2 heures cette semaine, et elle part après une demi-heure. C'est quoi comme mépris? Un travailleur devrait l'essayer, d'être payé à temps plein et de se barrer après une demi-heure au boulot. Franchement, félicitations. Ah oui, il faut travailler de temps à autre. Je sais que peut-être pour certains députés c'est un problème aussi.
Mun mielestä tuo oli vähän populismia. Me ymmärrämme, että komission puheenjohtajalla on aika paljon työtehtävää, mitä pitää tehdä sen sijaan, että...
Mais vous êtes merveilleux, vous. Vraiment, vous êtes merveilleux. Vous n'en avez rien à faire que le président de la Commission européenne soit là ou pas. C'est quoi comme type de député que vous êtes? Hein? Avoir une responsabilité de la Commission, ça vous intéresse pas? Qu'est-ce que vous faites là? Israel illegally and criminally attacked Iran this weekend. Illegally, because you can't just attack another country. I know Israel's in the habit of doing it, but it's still illegal. Criminal, because a lot of civilians, including children, were killed. And nuclear power plants were deliberately targeted, creating this way the risk of a nuclear catastrophe with mass civilian victims. Now this is terrible, and so I was saying, like we did when Russia attacked Ukraine, the European Union will condemn this. But what do I see? No. Ursula von der Leyen even insists on the right of Israel to defend itself. But to defend itself what? They're the ones attacking. They're the ones having the nukes. Right. They're the ones threatening to
we are in a procedural point.
No, okay, I agree, but come on. To transform Tehran into Gaza.
Okay.
So we need a vote on this. We cannot just not condemn this and keep on supporting criminal actions that are against international law and against human rights. Thank you. Ce qui est dingue dans cette Europe, c'est que quand c'est pour trouver de l'argent pour la guerre, on en trouve tout de suite partout. Quand c'est pour filer de l'argent, de la thune aux multinationales, aux banques, aucun problème, on n'en manque jamais. Mais quand c'est pour les gens, pour les travailleurs, mais les gens ne sortent plus la tête de l'eau, il faut s'en rendre compte. Mais vous vous en rendez pas compte. Monsieur le commissaire, vous gagnez combien par mois? C'est quoi? C'est 25 000 euros par mois? La présidente de la Commission européenne, 30 000 euros par mois. 30 000 euros. Mais vous avez décollé. Hors sol totalement. Je pense qu'il est franchement temps qu'on vous remette un peu les pieds sur terre. Qu'on coupe dans vos salaires pour que vous compreniez un rien de ce que vivent les travailleurs en Europe aujourd'hui. Et que vous changez alors fondamentalement les priorités, parce qu'on n'en peut plus.
The difficulty is that they chose the wrong target. Monet and Schuman decided, and it's shared today by Mr Barroso and the Cohn-Bendits and others, they decided that it was the existence of nation state that led to war, and therefore we have to abolish nation state. So I have to say that I believe the whole European project is based on a falsehood. And it's potentially a dangerous falsehood, because if you try to impose a new flag, a new anthem, a new president, a new army, police force, foreign policy, whatever else, if you try to impose that without first seeking the consent of the people, you're in danger actually of creating the very nationalisms and resentment that you sought to snuff out in the first place. I've heard people this morning talking about the need for a United States of Europe on a federal model. You can only have that if people give consent for it, and nobody has. I'm not against Europe, but I'm against this Europe. And people are beginning to notice that actually, ultimately, the euro is not just doomed in the Mediterranean, but it's going to be impossible for France and Germany to stay together inside the same economic and monetary union. Just 2 days ago, Tony Blair said the European Union is not about peace. The European Union is about power. I think what he meant is the European Union increasingly will be about war. I do not want the United Kingdom to be part of a militaristic, warlike European Union. I don't know about some bright new fresh start for Europe. It looks a bit more like the knackers yard for failed domestic politicians. You're a good operator, and there are 240 multinationals who all managed to avoid hundreds of millions of euros of corporation tax by paying 1 to 2% tax in Luxembourg during your term there as Prime Minister. But please don't give us new. You know, you were Prime Minister of Luxembourg for 19 years, you headed up the Euro group. New you are not. You and this Commission, frankly, are as stale and musty as a corked bottle of wine. You've actually got to start getting rid of excessive regulation, particularly upon the small and medium-sized enterprises, who in any free market economy could not be expected to maintain the same standards for everybody and everything as the giant multinationals.
Well, I must congratulate you, Mr Samaras, for getting the Greek presidency off to such a cracking start. Your overnight successful negotiation in the trialogue on MiFID, I'm sure, will have them dancing in the streets of Athens. No matter that your country, very poorly advised by Goldman Sachs, joined a currency that it was never suited to. No matter that 30% are unemployed, that 60% of youth are unemployed. No, don't worry about all that, because the trialogue on MiFID has been a success. And in many ways, it sums up the two Europes. The Europe that's talked about in here by the dreamers, who want to impose a new United States of Europe with an identity and a currency, and the real world out there. And you come here, Mr Samaras, and you tell us that you represent the sovereign will of the Greek people. Well, I'm sorry, but you're not in charge of Greece, and I suggest you rename and rebrand your party. It's called New Democracy. I suggest you call it No Democracy, because Greece is now under foreign control. You can't make any decisions. You've been bailed out and you've surrendered. Democracy, the thing your country invented in the first place. And you can't admit that joining the euro was a mistake, because of course Mr Papandreou did that, didn't he? He even said there should be a referendum in Greece, and within 48 hours The unholy trinity that now run this European Union had him removed and replaced by an ex-Goldman Sachs employee puppet. We are run now by big business, big banks, and in the shape of Mr Barroso, big bureaucrats. And actually, that's what these European elections are really going to be all about. It's going to be a battle of national democracy versus EU state bureaucracy. Whatever you may say in this chamber, the people out there don't want a United States of Europe. They want a Europe of sovereign states trading and working together. Mr Juncker's name did not appear on any single ballot paper. And the whole thing has been the most extraordinary stitch-up. I mean, the loser, Mr Schulz, gets the consolation prize of being an unprecedented second-term president in the Parliament. I mean, it's all just a pretence that we're increasing democracy. Well, let's just have a think about the process we're about to engage in. We've all got to be asked to vote, and we've got one candidate to vote for. I mean, it's like good old Soviet times, isn't it? Surely democracy means you get rather more of a choice than one. But I think far worse than that, it is going to be a secret ballot. I mean, you really couldn't invent it, could you? Hard on the heels of a European election, our voters are not going to know how any of us have voted. And I would say to you, Mr Schulz, as President of the Parliament shouldn't vote in secret. The whole point of being publicly elected representatives is we should be held accountable for our actions to our own voters. Now, I would have thought, after the huge advances in the Eurosceptic vote, there might have been a rethink somewhere in Brussels, but clearly that was not to be. I mean, what is clear is you are going to carry on with the process of the centralisation of powers, which is not surprising, because for 20 years you've been a key player in this whole process, which frankly has treated democracy with deliberate contempt. I think the best example is your quote about the French referendum on the Constitution, where you said, if it's a yes, we will say on we go, and if it's a no, we will say we continue. How's that? How's that for belief in democracy? But we are being asked to vote for the ultimate Brussels insider, somebody who has always operated with dark backroom deals and stitch-ups, and I have to say that our group overwhelmingly will vote no. We don't want business as usual, we want real change. There's effectively been a coup d'etat on nation-state democracies without people realising what was being done to them. And these elections, the Eurosceptics may not yet have a majority in this House, but please don't think we're over, because the vast majority of European people don't want a European state, don't want a European Commission to be the executive, don't want that flag and don't want that anthem. So you'll get elected and will enjoy doing battle over the course of the next year or two. New Commission. You tell us that they're all in the last chance saloon, but you're going to have to introduce me to them, because this are pretty much a bunch of non-entities, unknown. I spoke to MEPs this morning who will be voting later, and most of them couldn't even name half of them. He's never been elected to anything in his life, which means he's perfect for the job. Because I don't think that the European public or commentators understand what the European Commission really is. The Commission is the executive, it is the government of Europe, and it has the sole right to propose legislation. It does so in consultation with 3,000 secret committees, staffed mainly by big business and big capital, and all the legislation is proposed in secret, because it means in any member state, there is nothing the electorate can do to change a single piece of European law. I suspect you're in for a tough time with this Commission. You're going to have the euro crisis, which hasn't gone away and is going to get worse. And you're also going to have the UK debate, where now it has become unacceptable to the vast majority of British citizens for there to be total free movement of people, extended to 500 million people, to come to Britain. I've got the feeling, after all his twists and turns, he's just about the most incompetent leader in the whole of Europe. And that's saying something, because there's pretty stiff competition. Indeed, every single prediction of yours, Mr Barroso, has been wrong. And dear old Herman Van Rompuy, Well, he's done a runner, hasn't he? Because the last time he was here, he told us we'd turned the corner, that the euro crisis was over, and he hasn't bothered to come back and see us. We were told that with the euro by 2010 we would have full employment, and indeed that Europe would be the competitive and dynamic powerhouse of the world. By any objective criteria, the euro has failed, and in fact there is a looming impending disaster. 100 billion is put up for the Spanish banking system, and 20% of that money has to come from Italy. And under the deal, the Italians have to lend to the Spanish banks at 3%, but to get that money, they have to borrow on the markets at 7%. It's genius, isn't it? It really is brilliant. So what we're doing with this package is we're actually driving countries like Italy towards needing to be bailed out themselves. In addition to that, we put a further 10% on Spanish national debt. And I tell you, any banking analyst will tell you 100 billion doesn't solve the Spanish problem. It would need to be more like 400 billion. And with Greece teetering on the edge of euro withdrawal, the real elephant in the room is that once Greece leaves, the ECB, the European Central Bank, is bust. It's gone. It has 444 billion euros worth of exposure to the bailed out countries. And to rectify that, you'll need to have a cash call from Ireland, Spain, Portugal, Greece and Italy. You couldn't make it up, could you? This ship, the Euro Titanic, has now hit the iceberg, and sadly there simply aren't enough lifeboats. Richard Sulik, who led the rebels, said, "I'd rather be a pariah in Brussels than have to feel ashamed before my children who would be deeper in debt." Listening to this today, it's almost as if this debate's been going on inside a padded cell that is the European Parliament, as people compete for who can be the most stupid. Who can be the most stupid? Who can waste the maximum amount of taxpayers' money? I really do think, as a political class, you're all wrong. And you're all wrong democratically, because nobody has ever given consent for this behaviour. And when people do vote no, well, when the French vote no, you ignore them. When the Dutch vote no, you ignore them. When the Irish vote no, you say vote again and get it right. And when Slovakia vote no, well, we're told today it'll all be okay because they can vote again this week until they get the right answer. We've got 17 countries trapped inside this economic prison of the Eurozone, and all you can do, Mr Barroso, is stand up and say we need more power. People like you, who've been the architect of this failure, the architect of the misery that is being inflicted upon millions, want more power. It's like Barroso in the bunker, unaware of what is happening in the outside world, but planning world domination. I hear the new idea is that the bailout fund will be multiplied, geared up ×5 by the European Central Bank, so that you've got your 2 trillion, Mr Verhofstadt. 2 trillion. Good God, Greece is going bankrupt. If you lot continue, the whole banking system in Europe is going to go bankrupt. The former British Chancellor of the Exchequer, Norman Lamont, this morning described the attempts to save the euro as the most gigantic Ponzi scheme. I'm tempted to think he's right. You have the charisma of a damp rag and the appearance of a low-grade bank clerk. Who are you? I'd never heard of you. Nobody in Europe had ever heard of you. I would like to ask you, President, who voted for you? And what mechanism? Oh, I know democracy is not popular with you lot. And what mechanism do the peoples of Europe have to remove you? Is this European democracy? Well, I sense, though, that you're competent and capable and dangerous, and I have no doubt that it's your intention to be the quiet assassin of European democracy and of the European nation states. But since you took over, we've seen Greece reduced to nothing more than a protectorate. Sir, you have no legitimacy in this job at all, and I can say with confidence that I can speak on behalf of the majority of the British people in saying we don't know you, we don't want you, and the sooner you're put out to grass, the better.
Il y a une intervention pour laquelle je n'ai que du mépris, mais je n'interviens pas là-dessus.